give us some background on what the Ron Paul genesis into the Mises? Can you talk about that at all?
Sure. Well, I think the Ron Paul revolution, as we used to call it, right? Like after 2012, many of us were kind of hoping that Ron Paul was going to carry that torch. And so a lot of us were like, okay, 2016, Ron Paul. And then he announced he was running in 2016. And a lot of us had very high hopes for that. And then the Ron Paul campaign just kind of fell apart. And the Donald Trump moment kind of sucked all of the life out of the room. Like that just took over the Republican Party. And then you had a situation at the end of 2016 where you had Donald Trump running against Hillary Clinton, and then there was a third party with the name Libertarian. And I know for me and a lot of other people in the Ron Paul movement, that's kind of when we first started really looking at the Libertarian Party and being like, okay, well, there's a real opportunity there. And we were so upset about the way it went. And the message, you had this golden opportunity to tell the whole country what libertarianism is. What they heard was Bill Weld endorsing Hillary Clinton. And that just drove us crazy. And then led by Michael Heiss and Josh Smith and a bunch of guys like that, we kind of decided we were going to do something about that and that this would be our next project. And, I think a lot of us, because we come from the Ron Paul movement, we were used to kind of the party apparatus trying to screw us over and keep us from being able to take the thing over, even though we kind of deserved it and went about it the right way and won the competition. But the difference this time is that we're going to win. People can make criticism about the Mises Caucus, but a lot of that usually comes down to is like they'll point to someone on social media who said something offensive. Well, this guy said this thing that's offensive, or this affiliate tweeted something offensive. But the one thing, man, that I love about the Mises Caucus and our whole camp is that we are inoculated to government propaganda. So what you can always count on our camp, you can always count on us to do is stand up for liberty when the propagandists are cracking down the hardest on it. And I don't think that can be said for some of those other people who have left the party now. And the truth is, it's a disgrace. It's a disgrace that the entire Libertarian Party wasn't together in opposing the lockdowns. I mean, imagine just claiming that you believe in liberty and you have a liberty party, and then the government just decided you have to stay in your house and you're not going to vote to oppose that. And there's been this big gap in the past between the liberty movement and the Libertarian Party, which is why still only a small percentage of the liberty movement are in the Libertarian Party. And that's something the Libertarian Party should think about. If you look at lockdowns, you look at what all the most popular libertarian podcasters, libertarian thought leaders were saying, we were all opposing it. From myself to Ron Paul, Tom Woods, Jeff Deist, Josh Smith, all of them, Scott Horton, every popular libertarian figure you could think of was completely against them. But that's not what you were getting out of the LNC. That's not what you were getting out of a lot of the Libertarian Party candidates. And a lot of the libertarian, influencers in the liberty movement were telling the Libertarian Party for years, you have to say it like this. You have to do it like this. And they didn't want to listen. And in fact, in some cases, they wanted to kind of antagonize and smear a lot of us. And okay, but we decided to enter the party and really say we're going to take this thing and make it something that the liberty movement can be proud of. And that's what's happening now. I mean, I think there's a lot of different factors to this, and part of it is the fact that everyone's got a voice on social media and they can't create this illusion of people being behind the message anymore because you can see it. You can see it right in front of you. Part of it's also that the system has grown more and more corrupt as the government's gotten bigger and bigger, and it's just not working as well anymore. But I do think that there is something to the fact that because the system has become more and more corrupt as it's become more and more centralized, and they've thrown out, it's the idea of someone being called racist or being called any name or something, they've just used that so much. They've gone to the well so much that it's become less and less impactful. It's like a few, weeks ago they were calling Joe Rogan racist. No one thinks Joe Rogan's racist. No one even believes it. But they just call him that. And so then the next time they call, oh, you're a racist, everyone goes, yeah, but that doesn't really mean anything. That doesn't mean anything anymore. So their system is failing, their support is failing, and their weapon of attacking people who step out of line is also failing. And so it's a really beautiful time to be alive. I think they're always looking for the next thing, the next thing to push. And yeah, it does seem like the transphobia is one of their new terms. Just the funniest one is just going to straight up Nazi. It's like, oh, they almost had to find a word. Like, well, what's worse than all these other words that we were throwing at you? I heard someone on Twitter the other day called me a racist Nazi, which just really made me chuckle. Like the idea that you were calling me a Nazi, and you felt like you had to add another adjective.
Is that redundant a little bit?
And then, and then it would be like a racist Nazi, like somehow that's worse than just being a Nazi. Not one of the racist ones, you know? But it's all this stuff, it's ridiculous. Like the people saying it don't even believe it. All the people watching know that the person saying it doesn't even believe it. But I think it's kind of like the last gasps of a dying order. And that's what's exciting. I don't know if libertarianism has yet really filtered into the masses, but distrust in the establishment has. So people know that these systems are failing. I don't know if they yet know what the libertarians have to say about it, but that's what this whole mission is about, is to take the Libertarian Party and make it something that can speak to the American people and tell them about all that stuff. That's our whole mission. If you're going to be a third party, and you're going to be a huge underdog, right? Like, you know, the people in this party will be bragging about the year that they got 3%, you know, and what a huge victory that is. So if you're talking about, you think 3% is a huge victory, and you want to go, well, what do you want to do? You're trying to win, right? They always say we're going to set the world free in our lifetime. But they say that as they brag about 3%, you know? So you're saying you want to go to 3%, like, what are you going to do? Something really crazy. You're going to double it to 6%. And then you're going to double that to 12%. And then you're going to double that to 24%. And then you're going to double that to 48% to win the presidency. Well, what did you say? That's something pretty crazy has to happen to take your best thing you're so proud of and then double it and then double that and then double that and then double that, right? So how do you think you're going to get there? By playing it safe? I mean, why would you think that if you're going to encourage some average person to have some radically different way of viewing the world, that you're going to get there by sounding exactly like CNN? You know, I love people at all these different libertarian organizations. I love people at, you know, Reason Magazine and people at the Cato Institute. I know people at all these places that are good people, that are friends of mine. But, you know, I see these things like there'll be Reason Magazine pieces where they're like, well, we want to, we want to get rid of vaccine mandates because we think that'll lead to more people getting vaccinated. You know, the mandates actually make people resist it, so we want to end the mandates so that more people get vaccinated. It's like, how about you just tell the truth? And the truth is that these vaccines were sold to the American people on lies. They were sold as, you get this and you can't get COVID and you can't spread COVID. That was a lie. They were sold that they were telling us this is only a pandemic of the unvaccinated. This is all complete, demonstrably bullshit. So why can't we just tell the truth? Like, if you're going to be a long-shot third party, if you're going to be a radical who wants to drastically change things, how about you tell the truth? How about start with that?
Perfect. Can I ask one more question? Okay, thank you. So, what do you tell to these people? They're out of their mind with the Democrats and Republicans. Where's the hope?
Well, I think the hope lies in the fact that people are looking for alternatives. There's no question about that. I mean, look, like, in 2016, the Democrats, in 2016, the Republicans wanted Jeb Bush to be the nominee. And he just crashed and burned. And in 2016, the Democrats wanted Hillary Clinton, and she had to cheat to get past an 80-year-old socialist. He came back in 2020 and had a heart attack and still gave Joe Biden a run for his money. You know? Like, there's a whole lot of people out there who are fed up with this system. And you see it all the time. And you see this massive movement. It's not just in the right wing of America, in the left wing of America, even a lot of people who I disagree with a lot. You know, you see, like, look at Bill Maher and, Barry Weiss. They're just completely fed up with the woke stuff and the COVID regime. You look at people like Glenn Greenwald and Joe Rogan and Tim Pool and all these guys are kind of like traditionally more left-wingers. And they're just like completely fed up with establishment. And it's not just the people I named, but it's their audience. their audiences combined represent like probably 100 million Americans, you know? And these people are right there with them. Those are the people they're listening to. So what we need, right, is that we need libertarians to be able to speak to all of these disenfranchised people, to explain to them what happened for everyone who is a libertarian. Is that we were all once in this situation where we were just kind of looking, and then we found this message and it was explained the right way to realize, like, oh, that's actually the answer. The answer isn't all of these, you're not trying to embrace like any of these failed movements from the 20th century of some like neo-fascism or neo-socialism or any of this stuff, neo-Marxism. What you want is true Americanism, which is the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. That's basically, more or less, what we're all talking about here. That liberty is actually the solution. That's what leads to peace and prosperity and harmony.
Lead us into what needs to happen in Reno. Next step us for that, for the party.
Yeah, Reno, this is going to be a historic moment in the liberty movement. And this is the liberty movement taking control of the Libertarian Party. And that's represented by the Mises Caucus. And, you know, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a fight, and there'll be some ugliness, but we're going to be victorious. And after that, this is going to be the home for the liberty movement. And it's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Would you be willing to like endorse McCardle or any people that you have running or anything? Would you want to talk about that a little?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm like way passionately supporting Angela McCardle, and she's going to be incredible as the chair of the LNC. That she's really principled and smart and hardworking. I'm supporting Josh Smith for vice chair, who's been an incredible warrior for the Mises Caucus from the very beginning of this whole thing. He's going to be awesome. We're going to put Karen Ann Harlos back in her old post because they removed her on some bullshit, so we're going to let them know they can't do that. We're putting her back in. We have a great slate. The entire Mises Caucus slate is just incredible. Excellent libertarians across the board. So we're going to, it's going to be, the Libertarian Party is going to be unlike anything it's been before. It's going to be what it always was supposed to be. What Murray Rothbard wanted this party to be. That's what it's going to be.